Alright, so hi guys. Hopefully the Audible, bleh, not sponsored by Audible. Hopefully the audio is usable. My Blue Yeti is getting to that time where it's starting to die out and starting to just randomly disconnect for no reason, and there's nothing I can do to fix it except for get a new one, and I don't have the money for that right now. So we're just gonna have to deal right now. Hopefully it's not too bad. Worst case scenario, you're never gonna hear this audio, and I'm gonna re-record it in OBS. Again, you'll just get that. But anyway, let's get into the fact that this video is sponsored by me. Yes, I'm doing this again. But hi, if you like and support me, I now have more stickers and sales going on in my Etsy store, linked down below. I am also still, at the time of recording this, doing the charity stickers for Stop AAP I Hate. And by the time this video goes up, hopefully I'll actually have the stickers in stock. I was able to get the stickers ordered, and I'm looking into getting a printer soon, so that way I won't have to like offset my stickers anymore unless I'm doing like a special thingy. But yeah, half the money for the Stop API 8 stickers are going to charity. The other half is going to the free shipping and getting them printed, and then just a small chunk for taxes, because, you know, I'm an adult. But yeah, sponsored by me in my Etsy, which is in my link tree link down below. And if you don't want to use my Etsy, I also have a Redbubble shop where I have some merch and stuff on there you can snag from too. That also helps support the Goral. Anyway. Hey, so editing Michie here. Hopefully I come out decent. I'm still not used to the own, like, self-promo thing. I'm not used to it, so it's going to take a while to get a hang of it, and I'm definitely not going to do it in every video. Don't worry about that. I just want to make this little update to say that I now own the stickers. I have the stickers in stock. All of the proceeds, well, I shouldn't say all, half the proceeds, obviously, go to charity. The rest goes to the shipping, so that way I can have them be free. But I also do have a printer now, so I will be making a video up on that in the future, but yeah, so the stickers are in stock, and on my Etsy I will have the updated product photos of the Stop AAP I Hate sticker up, so it won't be that little infographic. But at the time of recording it, I haven't taken it, and I'm currently doing the editing at 2 a.m., so I literally don't have, like, good lighting to do it here. So, yeah, just want to let you guys know there. Link in the description. Thanks for checking me out, and I hope you enjoy the video. Let's now get into D&D things that tick me off, or D&D pet peeves. In other words, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm actually really surprised I haven't done this video yet. Like, I went through my things and I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't done a pet peeves in a long time. And I'm sure I had to have done one on Dungeons and Dragons, because it's, like, you know, really, really big for me right now, and I didn't. I was, like, genuinely surprised. I did make a video, and I'll, like, it on screen real quick, where I talked about my experience with D&D, and I'll have that in the iCard up below if you want to watch that. You know, just as a little, precursor to when I started Dungeons and Dragons, back in the day, and some horror stories that went along with it. But now that I've been playing more regularly and getting into more one-shots and getting things out, I consider myself not a pro, not even close to it, but a decent seasoned player, you know. And so these are just some things that I've written down on my paper ASMR here. And the first one's going to be like the bulk of the video, because I have a lot of thoughts on it. So keep in mind, but I didn't want to like split this up into like multiple parts, because, you know, where it's just one point for one video and then the other pet peeves for the other. So let's just get into it. And obviously these are pet peeves, so if these do not bother you, that's fine. Please comment down below what pet peeves do bother you in Dungeons and Dragons or roleplay or tabletop RPGs in general. I'm only using D&D because it's the only ones that I've ever played, so to each his own, but I am always willing and loving to hear other people's experiences. And if you disagree with me, please explain why you disagree with me down below. I do read my comments. And so that way, you know, we can get something going there. That's not just for the algorithm, by the way. I, like, genuinely do mean that. I do like when people, like, give big worded responses to these things. Anyway, so, alright. So the first one I have is my most important one, and I've talked about this in streams and stuff because I've been streaming more on Twitch. More shameless plugs. But, it's getting more and more apparent, because I'm hearing more and more stories, and I'm seeing stuff on my TikTok. Yeah, I'm also on TikTok. That one's not to be a plug. I'm very addicted to that app in my free time. And so, while I'm not the best at making TikToks, I do enjoy watching them. But I've seen so many videos, and I've met people, and I've talked to people who, like, tell me these horror stories where, now, keep in mind, before I, like, go into this, like, chunklet rant, because this part is ranty over, like, a pet peeve, I do not judge people on how they spend their money. I judge on how they act about it. I have always been a firm believer of like, hey, your coin, your cunning, wow, your coin, your contra, whatever. I'm totally not mixing words right now. Anyway, I don't care how people spend their money. If it makes you happy, go ahead. I waste my money on stuff that I'm sure a lot of people think is really, really wasteful, but brings me joy, and I don't like throw it in other people's faces. You know what I mean? And so that's just an example here because I see it time and time again where people get like really, really, really excited and they get really, 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 really hyped for something and they're going all out and they're doing all this stuff and they end up buying all the books, buying all the dice sets for every player. They buy figurines, they buy maps, they buy DM screens. They get custom tables made. They do things where they have like LED setups and giant maps, and they like designate entire rooms in their houses to them when they're newbies. And I don't mean that as in you're like a terrible player. I mean that as in like you enjoyed D&D, but you've never played much yourself, and if you have, you are not a seasoned player. Now, the reason for this is, again, if you have the money and you're going to go all out and shit flops, because half the time it flops, your first chunklet of games when you are testing things out are going to flop. I don't know. Anyway, I could be wrong. I'm probably am wrong, because there's always that, like, exception to the rule. But everyone I have ever talked to have always said their first, like, 4 or 5 games always ended in disasters. Not like bad, just like, oh, schedules didn't work out. Oh, people weren't really figuring out how to play. Oh, some people wanted something from a campaign, other people didn't. Some people like one-shots, other people's don't. Some people like websites over others. Yada, yada, yada. You're gonna have to figure out your niche when it comes to this. It's kind of like video games or games in general. You got to find out what you like, Somebody who likes, Monopoly and very, like, basic family board games probably isn't gonna like really high risk, really complicated, really in-depth board games for board game people. It might sound very weird that I'm saying that, but like I've met people who like they are really serious about board games, which is cool. I've experienced some new ones in it, but I'm sitting here like, whoa, I have like never heard of this. I grew up on like Monopoly and like, sorry. and stuff like that. So like, there's different kinds of people out there for different things. Same when it comes to video games, some people like platformers, other people's like FPSs, some people like JRPGs, some people like walking simulators. Varies person to person. Same thing comes with tabletop RPGs because, hey, you know what? Sometimes something you really, really like and you want to play with like a really good friend or a partner or something might not be like what they really like. Are you really going to sit there and waste hours and days and time into something that you're not having fun with? I think that's what comes down to the big basis of like this whole thesis of this video with my pet peeves is like, I don't know, I'm too old. I'm 28 at the time of recording this audio to like not have fun with something anymore. Like, by that, it's like, if I'm spending my little free time, my precious free time on something, if I ain't having fun, I'm a yeet. That might sound mean, but I'm a go. Like, I don't have the time for that. So, when it goes to the all-out people, is I'm seeing these, like, people who ended up doing all this stuff and it flopped and they're like crying and they're like, I spent thousands of dollars on renovating my entire house and getting a custom table made, and I spent years working on a campaign and I got all this dice and I got all this food and I did all of this stuff, and I'm sitting here like, but why? Like, okay, maybe this is the jerk in me and like the adult in me, but like, if I did all of that, bro, the players should at least bring their own dice. Dice ain't that expensive, especially in person. Like, yeah, you also don't need that. Like, I saw one where this person was like, yep, spent years renovating my thing for this and doing all this and finding players and getting everything squared up, and after 2 games, they weren't having fun anymore. I just wasted all of this money. And it's like, and this isn't my own opinion. I mean, well, this is my opinion, but my friend, the Zodiac Lord, shares it with me. We talk about my streams, where, you don't need all that stuff. You really don't. I'm not saying you don't need it. If you want it, go get it. If you want minis and figurines and stuff like that, or you want to make your own and you're having fun with that too, go right ahead. But do not think you need to shell out thousands of dollars and have a Critical Role set up to do like D&D. Or like, oh, okay, we're going to like record it and turn it into like a thing. We want it to be a big thing. Now, be like, Michelle, well, aren't you being a hypocrite? You're like post up your D&D streams and you Twitch stream your D&D streams. Yeah, one game and one shots when I DM them, which aren't often. I did the Snow Stalkers and I want to do another one, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, but I'm not doing that with the intention of like, yeah, this is gonna be a big show. I'm doing this for me. I admit the D&D content on my channel is very self-indulgent. I know other people enjoy it, but I'm also doing it as a record for like me and my friends, so we can like go back and watch our own games if we want to, you know. So like, I'm not expecting our D&D game, which is just Lamp right now, because the other name we have is really, really long, to get really, really big. Not really. I mean, if it does, cool, but that's not the plan. I mean, we literally have it set up for my husband's in my setup because he's our DM. I'm in my bedroom with my iPad. My other friend's on his iPad. My one friend uses her phone and the other one uses her MacBook. Like, and we're all just in our rooms kind of vegging out, webcamming it and having fun. We don't really have maps. We do character art because we're all artists, but like, we don't do maps. We don't do figurines. We don't do minis. We do roll our own dice and we have our own honor system, but that's because we all like dice. But like, most of what we do is just audio talking and then we like visualize it all in our heads. Because I used to play games where I had the maps, I had the figures, I had everything. And you know what I learned, especially being an adult? This might sound harsh, but not everybody's schedules are going to work out once you're an adult. Like, it's a lot easier when you're teenagers in high school or middle school or whatever age you're watching this, Or like, if it's a family thing, I've seen people do like family D&D games. I think that's really neat. When my husband and I eventually, have crotch goblins of our own and they eventually, become sentient enough to play if they want to play. Yeah, I would love to do a D&D game with my family. Definitely wouldn't record it or stream it or anything. That would be I don't want to put my kids online like that. But like, would I go all out in that sense? Probably. But like, I would also like, as an adult, repurpose all of that stuff. Like, I literally heard a story from a friend of mine who talked about how they went all out and they did all this stuff. Same thing I'm talking about right now. And they did all this stuff. They played 2 games. People were like, we're not really having fun. Or, this isn't really our thing. Or, we want a smaller group. And they were like, oh yeah, so I just destroyed the table I built. And I, like, destroyed the room. And I was so mad. And I just never touched the game since. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm judging you. Because, like, that's a huge waste of money. Like, you can get all this stuff. But, like, bro, at least repurpose it. Like, oh crap, you got a table made? There, use it as a table. Like, because I've seen people make really aesthetic, really cool looking game rooms. When I own a house someday, eventually in the ether, because I'm a millennial, so, I like to hold out hope, but who knows. Yeah, I would like to have a D&D room set up, but I'm also going to use that as like a dining room and stuff. I'm not just going to have it be D&D in case D&D stuff doesn't work out, because that's life. That's something else. I saw it talked about on, I think it was the Dungeon Bros YouTube channel, I think. I'll slap him on screen real quick. Yes, editing, Michelle, I'm making you work today. But there's something like that. And so, where they talked about how, like, hey, you're not going to be able to play with everybody you want to play with, especially if you're adults, because it's different. You're not going to have, coinciding schedules like when you were kids. It's not going to be like, oh, yeah, or even early college. You know what I mean? I'll go with that too, where it's like you don't have to have a job because not everybody has a job in college, and it's like, oh crap, yeah, I have spring break now. We can do D&D every night for spring break, or oh, we have summer. I went to that a couple of times when I was younger and my friends were in college and they were here for summer and we just did D&D games like every Saturday. That shit was fun. But hey, sometimes schedules don't work out, and so you have to be like, all right, hey, I'm doing D&D on this day. We're doing it on this day. 2 times a month, maybe once a week if you can swing it with other people, but you're like, this is when it's happening. This is when it's happening and it's going to happen, and if not, okay. But like, even I, who is a pretty sentient D&D character now, or D&D player, I'm my own character, wouldn't go all out with that stuff, I wasn't going to use it myself. And I wouldn't be like making a pity party about it because you don't need it. I heard, I know he said he heard it from somewhere else, but it's like you could literally do it in a Denny's with napkins. Like, you don't need all that stuff. And the fact that a lot of people think they do is a big problem. You know, you don't need a giant webcamming streaming setup. You don't need a huge table. You don't need all this stuff. You really, really don't. And another thing too, Dungeon Masters take a lot of stuff they work on. My husband's one. I've only DM'd once, but I realized how hard it is and all the work that goes into it. I'm sorry. I'm at this stage in my life where, no, I'm not paying for everything if we're going to make this a collective effort. If you want to have all the D&D books, because we do personally have all the D&D books, because we also wanted the books. We read them, we have them, you know, but we didn't get them for other people. We got them because we wanted them, you know? Like, okay, we have the D&D books. There's great, you know? We use D&D Beyond. My husband pays more for his D&D Beyond so we can use, like, special characters and stuff, you know? Do you need that? No. You know, if you're willing to, like, do the work and do a Google Sheet and stuff like that, you can do it. You can do it all for free. And you don't need to go that extra effort. But I don't know if I ever talked about this in my D&D one. I know, like I said, this main point's, like, the biggest chunk of the video. But we used to have a thing, too, where it's like, okay, we would get food for people on the way there. And then it was getting to a point where we were always buying food for people. And then when we were like, okay, we can't afford that anymore, we're just going to pay for ourselves, people were like, wow, you're being real selfish. And it's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. Yeah, if I'm paying for the books, the setup, the place, and the dungeon master, and food, and dice, and minis, and a map, there's a power imbalance there. No, people should at least bring their own dice. You can buy your own dice, pitch in for food, do stuff like that. I'm sorry, there is no reason you should go all out for everybody if they're not willing to do it, and then not even have the decency to, like, stick around for an extra game. So, yeah, that's a pet peeve rant I really don't like. I don't like the people who do all that stuff, they go all out, and then they complain about it when it falls apart, because they don't have the experience or the players to warrant it. I hate saying it, but it's kind of like friendships. You know, you need to build stuff up over time. Be like, oh, wow, we've played this game constantly for, like, 7 months. Maybe we can invest in getting a nice table. Maybe we can invest in getting some nice figures. We've done that now. Like, I feel that enough with some of the groups I'm in, even though it's all online because, you know, Six Bike Around Boy is still a thing. And so, with that being said, you know, like, oh, yeah, we've been constantly playing the game. I feel confident with my players. Yeah, I don't mind drawing stuff for them. I don't mind doing stuff like this for them. I don't mind getting really invested into my characters because we've been doing it long enough that I feel more confident in it. And that's something really important to keep in mind. Because a lot of these people who do it aren't. Some are. You see the few success stories are, and they're from people who were like, oh yeah, we've been playing this since we were kids, and now they're like in their 30s. It's like, okay, see, those are people who know what they're talking about. They know how they like to play. They know what they're doing. Makes sense to waste the money on that. Other people, repurpose it or stop complaining. So, alright, the next thing. Because that was a long tangent. So, the next one was something that was brought up to me that I didn't really notice until my friend pointed it out and then I witnessed it. And it's DMs who won't let you think or your roles mean, like, nothing for certain things. Obviously, in Dungeons & Dragons, railroading is going to happen sometimes for plot convenience if you're doing long campaigns or stuff like that. But you also need to... Joe Cat made a really good video on it where you need to, like, kerfuffle it. Like, you know, you can't control your players. At that point, if your players are not doing what you wanted them to do, go write a story. Because that's not the point of a game. It's a game. You're not supposed to know how people are going to react. You're not supposed to know how people are going to do stuff like that. It is a GOM. It's a GOM. Okay? The whole point of having dice is that you leave it up to the dice gods. And if stuff goes bad, then it goes bad. You know? If stuff doesn't go as planned, it goes as planned. But, like, I finally witnessed that where... Now, I'm not a perfect player in any way, shape, or form. Especially going back and editing some of my own streams. I'm like, ooh! Someone needed to point out sooner that I got really loud. So, you know, like, I can think of reactions pretty quickly when it comes to characters, because I really like role-playing, I really like writing with characters, you know? But when it comes to, like, fighting and strategy, I gotta think for a minute. And I finally had it happen to me where I had a DM that, like, wouldn't let me think. And or when I was playing a game and I tried doing a roll, the roll meant nothing. I actually got a nat 20 on something, and the DM. Now I don't fully blame this DM, but because they were reading from a module they bought, and they gave me like a really vague answer, and I was like, I got a nat 20. Like, what does that mean? Like, uh, uh, was there a point to it at all? Like, at all? You know? And it gets to a point where you're just kind of sitting there, like, scratching your head, like, okay, I'm not really having fun anymore now, because, like, why? Why? What was the point? What was the point of that? You know? So, yeah, like, some DMs, like, but there's a catalyst to it, I think, is there are some DMs that, like, don't DM enough. Like, they are very laid back and they let the players just control the game, which can be fine if you're in a group of people that are like that. But if you're not, you kind of need a DM to, like, you need to find a DM that's a good middle ground, and that's also a hard thing to find. You need to find a DM that's, like, strict when they need to be, caring when they need to be, and understanding when they need to be. But sometimes they can't. I do not think that a, like, perfectly nice DM could exist in a good game. Like, because sometimes you gotta be mean and you gotta put people in their place so other people can have fun, you know? But there's a way to do it. Obviously, talk to players, do things like that. And if you have problematic players, you gotta kick them, okay? Don't matter if they're your friends. If they're being problematic and making the rest of the team uncomfortable or upset, they gotta go. Don't matter if they're your friend. Or, hey, you two can go and go find something new, because, like, there's usually signs for things like that if they're not willing to change when you talk about them. Hey, editing me again, just because I'm not heated, and I'm going back and listening to it right now, because I was a little, like, I was in the zone when I was recording this. Anyway, I want to reiterate, when I was talking about kicking players, I meant to point out, like, talk to them first, obviously. Like, people should get a warning and should know what's going on, because there are some people who genuinely don't know what's going on. But if you give them warnings and they keep doing it, no, then kick them. Get them out. Do them about it. But that's a big thing that I've noticed, is just, like, not letting players think, and then you just keep going. Or you give them a chance where there's nothing they can do. Or they do something and there's no point in doing it. Big pet peeve, don't like it, don't have fun, don't want to do it. So, the next one I have is the exact, like, opposite of that, and it's about players. And it's players who are too quiet or the center of attention. Now, here's what I mean by that, because there are shy players, and I have played with shy players, you know? So, it's not a knock on them exactly. It's just, there are some people that are such shy players that I personally do not see the point of them being in a game if their character just kind of exists or does their own thing. You know, like, I get that people want to be part of a group and do something, but if your character isn't a character, because you can be a shy, quiet character and still be a character. I've played with characters who were deaf or mute and still were very charismatic characters, even though the players were a little on the softer side. This is also something that I like doing, where I like playing with webcam. It's a big thing, because obviously you're not in person right now, that I really enjoy. I know people are self-conscious and stuff like that. I get it. But, like, sometimes, because I do a lot of my games over the internet, sometimes people's internet's just acting up, and you can't tell in the audio alone, but we can tell with the webcam if they're glitching out. Or one of my friends is a pretty quiet player, but in a game we play as, she, like, raises her hand every now and then, like, if we're talking over her, and because we're all paying attention, we're like, oh, wait, so-and-so wants to talk. Okay, we're going to shut up so so-and-so can talk and do her thing. Like, that's fine. Again, you can have shy characters and shy players, but it's when they're so shy that they're non-existent. And then on the exact opposite end of that, we got the players that are the center of attention. Now, I do my best to, like, not be a main character, because there shouldn't be a main character in D&D. Everyone should be the main character. But I have played a couple of really bad games where I had to take the lead because of something that I'm going to bring up in a pet peeve in a minute, where, like, I had an incident happen where a player decided to just stop playing mid-game, but still was there. And by that, I mean they stopped role-playing, they stopped acting, they just kind of existed. And, like, for the entirety of the rest of the play session we had, not, like, the day, like, that. And it was really awkward for me, because now it was just, like, me talking, because I played with a lot of shy people, and other people had to, like, got out of it, but it was just getting to a point where, like, okay, I just want this done. Like, I don't want to have to, like, lead everything. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not even saying I'm that good enough player to lead, just that, like, no one else was going to, and no one else would talk or do things like that. And it really set me off a little bit. And so I've been doing better in my own to like try to not be as overbearing about the characters I play and to sit back and let other people do stuff and things like that, because I had to do that. But then there are some people that like, and this goes into my next one, where if things don't go a certain way they want with their character, they just stop playing. And by stop playing, I don't mean they quit. I would rather you quit. Like I said, if you ain't having fun, fucking leave. I would rather just leave. I would say something and be like, bah. Because I get it if you're not having fun anymore. But I have played a few games with players where something didn't go the way they wanted, and instead of dipping out, which I would have been irritated by either way, but I wouldn't have been as salty, than them just being there and playing the sheer mechanics of the game and not doing the role-playing part of Dungeons & Dragons. Because, like I said earlier, for me, the biggest part of Dungeons & Dragons I like isn't actually the fighting. I like the role-play, I like the snarkiness, I like puzzles, I like things like that. Do I know there's going to be fighting and stuff? Obviously. Do other people like fighting and action? Obviously. But for me, it's about the characters, you know? And that's how I like playing. And I like playing with players who are more story-based than we're going to go into a cave and do a dungeon. Do you know what I mean? Nothing wrong with mixing it up, doing that here and there. It's just that main thing. It gusses me. It gusses me. So I've played with people where something didn't go their way, and for the rest of the game, they're like, I would ask what their character was doing in character, they'd say nothing, they'd say the character was like laying back, nothing, and it just like totally killed the vibe of the entire game. And then I witnessed this with not even a game I played. I was talking to a friend once, where my friend was telling me a story where, and this was on the player, I totally blame the player on this, I don't blame the DM. Apparently they were doing a long-form campaign, they've been doing it for about 1.5 years at the time, and what had happened was, they had to have canceled a few games. We've had this happen, life happens, sometimes you gotta cancel games when you're adults. But they had to cancel a couple games for reasons, and they didn't want to cancel again because my friend couldn't make it to that session. So my friend was like, hey, DM, just play my character, whatever. Well, apparently, that character had, like, an end-all, be-all, like, save-the-party magic thing. I genuinely don't remember what it is. I'm not being vague for vague's sake. I genuinely don't remember what it is, but that's what they pretty much described it as. And they didn't tell the DM, the player did not tell the DM, apparently that super uwu special big mega we're gonna save everybody thing was like a really important point of the character's backstory or the character's arc or whatever. You know? The player did not tell the DM that. So during that game that the player was not there, the DM was like, crap, half the party's gonna die. This character has this thing, we're gonna just use it. So they used the thing. And then my friend told me, it's like, yeah, I just don't like playing anymore now that I know this big super ooh special thing I was saving is used and, you know, now it's not special anymore. And I was like, wait, so like you're giving up on a game you've been playing for over 1.5 years because you didn't tell the DM, hey, don't use this thing? And they tried arguing with me, being like, well, they should have known. I'm like, no, how are they supposed to know that if you did not tell them that? How? That makes no sense. People are not mind readers, because I've had people tell me this. Not in Dungeons & Dragons, but in other instances, like, well, Michelle, you should have just known that. And I'm like, well, you know what? Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't know that, and that's why you need to tell me, okay? I want to grow and be better as a person. How am I supposed to do that if nobody tells me and I think everything's hunky-dory? Huh? Because I've had people tell me that a couple times. It's like, well, you should just know. It's like, sometimes you don't. Okay, I'm sorry. Plus, a DM who has to take care of, for a campaign you've been doing it for over 1.5 years, I'm sure that DM's got other stuff in mind, and for over 1.5 years, you should have told the DM, like, hey, this uwu special mega uwu blah thing is special to my character story, don't use it. You should have brought that up. You should have said, like, hey, even if stuff gets bad, don't use this thing. That's on the player. But apparently that player, my friend, just kind of stopped playing. Like, they still played because they're like, well, I played for 1 year, but they didn't role play that much. They didn't enjoy it anymore. And I'm like, well, it sounds like you're kind of being a sucky player now, a little bit of a sore loser because of a mistake you did. That's irritating. That is something you should have told your DM, because that is on you. That is not on the DM. If I was a DM and my party was dying and I saw this character who wasn't there had this like power thing on their sheet, I'd be like, we're going to use that. Because I don't want my players to die. It's kind of basic. But what can I say? I feel like sometimes common sense doesn't exist anymore, or other people just don't understand common sense like they should because nobody, like I said, told them. There are some neurodivergent people out there that don't have common sense like other people do, and that is not a slight to neurodivergent people. That is simply saying that sometimes you need to just tell them, okay? Because sometimes people just need to tell me. And will my feelings be hurt? Sometimes, but you know what? I'd rather be told than think everything's fine and dandy when it's not. And so the next one, which is my last pet peeve for this very long pet peeve rant, so it is big groups. This is a personal one of mine. I will fully acknowledge this. Who I cannot play in big groups. Like 5 max people. That's it. I can play with like 5 max players, and that's like my limit. And that's a high limit already. My comfort zone is like a good 3 to 4. But I do have a couple of games where I play with... Counting right now. Yeah, I play with about 5 players. That's like the most I'll go. I won't do that anymore. This personally, it's me. Because I feel like at that point, for me, from my experience, that's too many people if people aren't on the same vibe and we don't like make a cohesive team, because sometimes people don't want to make a cohesive team. They want to make like what they want to make as a character, which is fine. Just for me, I like to have a balanced team so we don't die when we're fighting kobolds. But that's a personal on me, is I'd rather like smaller groups of players than really big, giant, gymongous groups. Do I like watching big groups on like streams and stuff? Do I watch Critical Role? Yes, I do, and I do enjoy them, and I give them lots of credit because I just can't. I can't no more. So there are my D&D pet peeves. Like I said, please let me know down below if you agree or disagree, or name some pet peeves that you've experienced. And they don't have to be D&D, like I said. They can be any tabletop RPG if you've had other experiences, because I want to know. I like having these like chit chats with you. And so let me do my little end of the ring shield here. Thank you as always to my amazing Patreon patrons. I love you all so much. Without you guys, this literally wouldn't be possible. Every little bit helps. It brings me a lot way. That does bring me a long way and help support the girl. I also would like to thank you for watching. Please remember, if you can't think of anything to say, comment for the bot, because I am still getting comments of people who are saying they haven't seen my stuff in a very long time, and they're getting pushed in the algorithm thanks to the bot comment, so those help a lot too. And if not, you don't want to comment for the bot and you feed that good bot food, why don't you put an emoji down? Anyway, you don't have to, but if you do, and you like what you see, I make new videos every Wednesday, and I will. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.